Welcome, and thank you for joining today's webinar on BCM1's Voice-Enabled Teams solution. In today's new norm of remote working, make it easy for your employees, customers, and partners to collaborate by using BCM1's Voice-Enabled Teams solution. And that takes the native Teams phone system a step further. Our solution integrates Teams with SIP trunking and/or UCaaS hosted voice to give you an enterprise-grade phone system that fills in those gaps of the native Teams phone system. In this particular session, we will provide you with all you need to know about how BCM1 can help you supercharge Microsoft Teams into a full voice platform. And that platform will include Microsoft Teams licensing, planning, phone system limitations, logical migration strategy versus hot cutover. And by the way, that's a huge key differentiator for BCM1. Direct routing solutions with provided hosted SBCs. Leading today's charge, we have Mike Nowak, our Senior VP of Sales at BCM1, who previously served as a senior leader at NextVortex, our managed SIP division of BCM1 and a sister brand to BCM1. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items that I need to mention. If you haven't noticed, all of you are currently muted, but if you have any questions, please state them in the Q&A box that you'll notice at the bottom of your screen. We will address them at the end of the session. This call is also being recorded, and we'll provide you with the link to this webinar by the end of day today for your review. All that being said, it's now my pleasure to turn this over to Mike Nowak. He's an industry thought leader with over 20 years of experience. Mike, it's all yours.
Bob, you're too kind. Good morning and good afternoon to all those who are joining us today. Microsoft Teams is a rapid growth solution set. We're joined by folks that have been using Teams in some capacity or other, or highly interested in utilizing the capabilities of Microsoft Teams. Today, my goal is to provide in 30 minutes an overview of some of the applications and solution sets that we provide here at BCM1 and how folks, maybe similar to yourself, are using it. I'm going to try to do that in 30 minutes, and we can leave it for Q&A at the end. And of course, this is recorded if you'd ever like to revisit it. My background, as Bob said, I've been in technical sales since coming out of school and joining IBM years ago, and have always been fascinated by emerging technologies and helping to point out areas of ways that technology can be used. So this is very fun for me, and have been highly interested in Teams since learning about it in 2018. So why are we using Zoom today, right? Zoom is, we also find, is a powerful technology. And we do like Zoom for hosting large meetings, and nothing against the team solution set, but that's been our choice. It's worked well for us. And again, that's why you'll see us use Zoom today. For those that are not as familiar with BCM1, we're a managed services provider and next-gen communications services provider. And we serve customers really all over the world, heavy concentration of folks that are based in the US and Canada, of course. And I would argue a fast growing business partner for yourself. The company is doing very well financially and continues to invest in different practices, especially next generation voice services. A couple things that are going to be talked about today have deep roots in these practices that we've put together here at BCM1 over the years. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about with Microsoft Teams involves the ability to connect to Microsoft Teams in a seamless way, and that's interoperability. The way that we host the infrastructure is going to be critical. The ability to share resources back and forth, especially if you're going to do a conversion from one technology into Teams or a hybrid. Those are going to be important. And then things that should be on the checklist for any team solution, such as emergency services and disaster recovery. Those are practices that we've built here at BCM1 that are showcased in the team solution set. And then, of course, when you go into Teams, you very well need a strategic partner. And having BCM1 be a Microsoft Gold partner, allowing you to have that extra support will help when you need it in building out a nice team solution. Some of the terminology that you're going to see today, I thought I would just touch on so that we're on the same page. Of course, Teams is a collaboration engine, but also a phone system. So you're going to hear it as it's referred to as the Microsoft phone system. Direct routing is the ability for you to choose a Microsoft Teams phone system deployment and use a partner like BCM1 to provide your calling minutes and calling capabilities. Session border controllers, SBC, those are needed for interoperability with Teams. We provide that infrastructure, and we'll show you a glimpse of that in a second. And then emergency services to address Kerry's Law and Ray Baum Act. We'll just touch on ERLs and ELINs, and of course, SIP forking bonds everything together. So let's jump into Teams and just talk about the deployments of it and the applications. So first and foremost, I don't think it's of news to anyone the rapid growth Microsoft Teams is having in the rapid adoption. Tremendous statistics. Anyone that has Microsoft 365 has access to Teams. It's easy to get into, and before you know it, you find the inner office call capabilities and the video calling and the screen sharing. And when you compile that with needs for presence and work from home applications, it was a perfect capability to just take off, especially when there was changing needs in the environment. And so tremendous feature set included free of charge for Microsoft 365 users. And there's additional components you can add to it, such as the phone system. And that's what we're going to talk about today here in the main segment is as a 365 user, you can invoke and add on the phone system capability, which would really act as a replacement of traditional phone system platforms. And some folks will use the Microsoft phone system. They'll activate it typically for $8 per user, unless they're in the education sector or nonprofit sector. And that'll allow them to use that phone system that's embedded in the Teams environment to replace or work in conjunction with other platforms that they have. So again, Microsoft Teams, anyone can access it as a 365 user for collaboration. Take it to the next level, you invoke the phone system and you can do that. The bottom pieces here are how you get your phone minutes and your DIDs and toll-free numbers over. And direct routing is one of those options. You either can have Microsoft be your phone company and have them handle your porting and have them handle your customer service, moves, adds, and changes scenarios, which is a bit intimidating. Or you can have a strategic partner like BCM be your direct routing partner, provide the voice capabilities for that Teams phone system, or supplement it with additional features and capabilities you need. So when we talk about Teams solutions, there's three different buckets that I see it as. The first one is really just using it as is. You're using it for collaboration, presence, and screen share, etc. It's interesting and inviting to turn on the Microsoft phone system. Some people do this to replace phone systems again, or use it to supplement. And the third bucket, of course, is when folks turn on that Microsoft Teams phone system and they recognize they needed help for paging or advanced call capability or call handling needs that they just can't get in that system. That's another option of where you may use us to fill that in. And I'll give you some examples to paint the picture of how you'd use the services that we have to address the scenario that you may have. Okay. So let's start off by first level setting on the Teams phone system. If you haven't invested in researching it, I think you'll find it's a solid system that's underneath the covers in 365. There are some things that Microsoft doesn't necessarily have strengths in with that phone system, things that they're developing, and I think we'll see improvement over time. There are some things that you must know before converting to it. First and foremost is you'll find folks that will want to move to it, and you need to address their handset scenario, or are they going to use and live off their laptop? That's a conversation that must happen. Without it, it can cause some anxiety and stress to the Salesforce workforce, and the company itself. Some things that are usually noted that folks are missing or would like improvement on, including advanced call handling, call recording. Symptoms of missing calls can occur, especially if you're in meetings, your settings aren't correct, and you don't have that visual ability to use off a handset. When you move into devices and handsets, you have to be aware that there's only so many that are certified to be used on the Microsoft phone system. The Yealink series is a common lineup, and they do have several phones that are certified, and that's typically what BCM1 would represent when building out a solution if phones are needed. It is important to note Microsoft Teams phones need to be provisioned with your email address, not a typical URL that you'd key in as a UCaaS provider. There is some known differences. And again, when you move into a Teams environment, we always like to consult and discuss call features that you may need, dial plan features. Is there any changes to the environment? Is there any software integration that you may have? That may be a problem for you to just jump into this system alone. Door access paging and the 911 zoning. So these are all things that we like to discuss with any of our clients as they think about moving into Microsoft Teams to recommend the right solution. Our hope is to point out a few things to be aware of as you make that migration. So we have a couple different solution sets depending on the scenario. Solution one is a real easy one. This is really someone that has invoked the Microsoft Teams phone system. They've decided to use that in some capacity, and they really need gas for the car, if you will. So they come to BCM1 and they ask us to be the calling plans for their users in lieu of using a Microsoft service. A number of benefits to doing this, and I'll show you that in a second. So this is pretty simple, really just relying on the intelligence of that phone system embedded there and using BCM1 for the calling minutes and having the number access and forwarding for you. Number two is really someone that has a more robust need set or a robust set of needs with their call handling or their environment, or they want a centralized environment. They very well need a comprehensive foundation, and that usually is using our BroadSoft platform called UCaaS One. UCaaS One becomes the foundation to connect all the users, and what you're really doing is integrating the teams, and you're allowing people to pick and choose their endpoint. Do they want a handset that they may currently have, or do they want to use the Teams client as their phone? So they kind of pick and choose there. And you can also do hybrid scenarios I'll touch on. The third scenario is a SIP trunking based scenario. And this allows you to either A, have your current Cisco Mitel Avaya, perhaps phone system, power it with BCM SIP trunks or managed SIP trunks, and migrate in pieces over time while sharing all those resources. So usually a low cost option with a great play for the future. So 3 scenarios. I'm going to jump into some of the applications to hopefully continue to evolve this story for you. Okay, so let's just look at a simple scenario. This may be a scenario where you have some small offices or a single small office. Again, a good baseline. Needs are simple: auto attendant, simple call flows, common area phones, and of course, everyone has some work from home users today. And what you need is, what you're comfortable with, is using the Microsoft Teams phone system as a standalone. If you go down this path, for these simple applications, we act as the voice provider, port the phone numbers in, provide the 911 services, and provide free calling minutes to any calls in the continental US and Canada. International rates are just based on the zone you call. There's a bunch of advanced functionality you get in with this solution set beyond a calling plan. The alternative is to use a Microsoft service, and we find typically you pay $12 per user for the voice minutes. In this case, the savings per person with some advanced capabilities such as 911 services, a 911 services module, disaster recovery capabilities, and a full voice command and control portal. One of the things that folks love about the service is the portal. And in that, you'll see a screenshot here of the disaster recovery module. And what this allows you to do is every phone number and DID toll-free number you have, they're listed in your portal, preset your failover rules. So in the event Microsoft Teams disappeared, it would default to your rule set. We can fail the calls to cell phones or backup Pstn lines. We can even fail the calls to a phone system if you like. So this is included for our customers and gives you the firepower of the SIP trunking services that we have embedded underneath. The 911 module is also a major contributor to our success. What this allows you to do is see all of your 911 locations that you have down to the classroom level or suite level or floor level. It also uses technology underneath it to get you to the local, and this is key, the local PSAP. That way they know who you are. This is a service where you tell us your physical addresses and locations. We list them and then we add your emergency identifiers to them. So when you make a call out, it goes to the right location. Easy setup. Our team walks you through it, and you can always test it with one of our codes. The alternative is going to a national operator who does not know who you are. By the time they find out who you are, you've lost valuable seconds. We love this service. We think you'll appreciate it. And we provide this module to our voice-enabled teams, customers, and SIP trunking customers. The next thing I'm going to show you here is the provisioning portal. This is the first step that you do when you make your Microsoft Teams journey with us. In most cases, we host the SBCs needed to connect teams. And really all it is the global administrator from your company, keys in their credentials, and we bond together. It takes a couple minutes. You can have this all set up in approximately 48 hours. So rapid deployment. There is no PowerShell scripting or command lines that you have to do when you do a setup with us. So very easy to do. And if someone was interested in calling plan one option that you've seen, you can be set up very quickly. And again, no command line or PowerShell scripting needed with what we put together for you. As we get into option two, I wanted to make sure you knew the underlying technology for option two. Option two, again, is using our UCaaS one foundation to connect all the users together on a single advanced platform. It gives you the option for Teams integration, which allows you to make and receive calls from Teams clients or your traditional supported UCaaS one handset. So a couple things on it, as you can see from the slide, very robust geo-redundant network built off BroadSoft software, which is one of the most widely deployed calling platform softwares in the world. There's some advanced things that we can do with it to help Teams migrations. One of those things is door access, paging units, and special applications that you may need that are above and beyond what the Teams phone system can do. Again, paging is very common, door access. Those are things we like to bring up pre-sales to make sure we're making the right recommendation. If you need those, you usually will need the UCaaS one framework underneath the team solution. And then again, that's option two, or a hybrid of using some of that technology. When you get into advanced call handling, that's where folks will look to us as well to use our UCaaS one system. In there, we can provide call analytics, advanced call routing capabilities, and reporting that you may need to either replace or supplement a Teams deployment. So again, this is part of the UCaaS one solution set. So how about we talk about how it ties together, and I'll show you how it's priced and brought to the market. In this example that you see here, this organization has centralized call handling. They may have many locations, but they're constantly working together and transferring calls from the Pstn back and forth. And that's a key thing. If you're transferring calls back and forth from the outside world, you very well need solution set two. If you have any advanced functionality, like folks that need sidecars, or you need advanced call queuing, or a more robust call queuing setup, paging units, etc., Solution 2 is probably what you need. And what that does is it takes the UCaaS 1 service and extends it to all of your users in a centralized way. What we do at BCM1 is we provide Teams integration at no cost for new implementations. It's very easy to do. And when you do your implementation, we want to make sure that we understand the users that you have and how you want them to be deployed. But the pricing that you see here, this includes the Teams integration and allows you to pick and choose. Do you want the endpoint of the customer to be Microsoft Teams, or would you like it to be a traditional handset that opens up the device options for you? Special application seats are used for paging units or conference room phones, kitchen phones, deck phone applications, etc. So those are some options, and we also have advanced contact center, call center seats that you can use as well. One note on solution set 2 is if you want the full Teams integration, you do need to still invoke the Microsoft Teams phone system license. So you have your seat from BCM1. You also need the Teams phone system enabled to get that dial pad that we can connect back into. Our ability to execute is excellent here, but again, we do need to have the conversation up front to make sure that we have everything in line for you. The next option I wanted to talk about is a decentralized environment, and we find these come up quite a bit where there's a large organization, but the offices that are scattered around the world are more self-contained. They don't do, and I think this is the key phrase, Pstn transfers back and forth very often. They call each other quite a bit. They're doing that free of charge through Teams. They're not necessarily interacting with the outside world and transferring calls around. So they're almost a decentralized environment for one company. And what they find is 80 to 90% of their users are completely content with a more limited feature set they get with just the standard Teams phone system. They have some power users, though, and some special applications that they must address with advanced technology. And so what they do is they use solution set 2 that you've seen earlier, but they only use part of it. And what they really are doing is they're blending solution set 1 and 2 together. And this creates a significant cost savings because you don't need a UCaaS seat for every person. You only use it for your power users, your advanced call handling users, and some of your special applications. So that's where you identify it. You do have to know if you go down this path, you really are operating 2 independent phone systems. In your transfers, you have to do dial plan manipulation. And we can talk through that if you like. But this is a powerful solution set and can offer a significant cost savings because, again, you're using some users on the calling plans from us and some users on the UCaaS 1 seats. Okay, so that's solution 1 and 2. Let's talk about solution 3. Solution 3 is very popular. The first thing that you probably want to understand about solution 3 is it utilizes our SIP trunking capability. This practice has been built starting from the ground up 20 years ago. One of the original SIP trunking companies in the market. And this was part of the acquisition BCM1 did of NextVortex. There's a comprehensive SIP trunking network that's been built out called the MSIP network. And a lot of our clients like this network for a variety of reasons, including peering and call visibility in an over-the-top or connected environment. Taking it a step further, you'll see folks that want to use that with their existing phone systems to start out today, but start to incorporate Teams, the Teams phone system for some users over time. And so when we look at our clients that are doing this, these are folks usually with hundreds or thousands of users, and they still have centralized phone systems in some departments, but they have other departments that they're starting to put on Teams. And the beauty of this solution is they can use the same exact BCM1 SIP trunks that they're using to power their Mitels and Avayas, or any combination of the two, and even with PRI handoff to some units, as well as the Microsoft Teams phone system. We can do this because we build, own, and operate the call processing on the back end. So it's a bit of a unique strategy. And it allows you not to have to overpay for your SIP trunks but also giving you an avenue to get to Teams when you're ready to. So what you see here is the practices that we've put together under BCM1 allow you to migrate over time in a future-proof way, whether you want to go full-blown Teams phone system, you want to slowly creep into it, or you want to have a strategy where you slowly migrate off on-premise phone systems. You have some really neat solution options there. And the one last thing I wanted to touch on, I don't know if we have any Department of Defense users on this call, but we do quite a bit of work with the Department of Defense. And if anyone was from that vertical, we definitely are ready to support you from a GCC high perspective. We do a lot of work in this area with our Microsoft Teams solutions, and part of it is our certifications with the underlying Microsoft SBCs. So in summary, we're about on time. We're about on time. In summary, I think you'll find a comprehensive solution set. I think you'll also find a high degree of the ability to execute. The scary thing in the market I find is many players have tried to get into this space because it's attractive and it's fast growing. But the foundation, the fundamentals behind it, the practice behind it, you'll find here at BCM1. And so if you're interested in these solution sets, we would suggest a conversation to talk about your call environment. Where do you want to take it? How do you see the environment changing? How do we address 911 zoning for your employees? And what does it look like today? And then also, what is the right migration strategy? Doing a hot cut makes sense sometimes, but a lot of times you need a phase rollout. And then also, I would say, if you're in position to and you have the Microsoft licenses, or would like to get them from us, we do offer a 4-user demo kit. Something easy, quick to get some folks in your IT group using the Teams phone system and making some live calls to the outside world. In that experience, you'll learn more about the call handling and the system capabilities to see what solution set is right for you. That being said, Bob, I think we're at the 2:27 mark, and I would prefer to be timely. So how about we see if there's any questions from the field?
Okay, well, I have a handful. So let's start with the first question that I received. And that's, how does the implementation process work, Mike?
Implementation process. It really starts with an understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, right? So it depends on the solution set, but what we're trying to accomplish. So it depends on option 1, 2, or 3. The thing that you're always going to find constant is a dedicated project coordinator. So they're going to know the playbook of what you're trying to do. They very well have a solution engineering discussion note reference beforehand to help guide them or get technical resource if they need to as you do the implementation. But I think the key piece there is you're going to have someone willing to help and also point out some things that you need to be aware of on the time frame. And one of the big pieces I find is having an in-house porting team is, when do you want the numbers to port over? And then let's work backwards. That is really helpful to have pre-sale, because if you're expecting numbers to port instantly, we have to negotiate with underlying carriers. It does take some time. You want to be aware of those time frames. And the other thing is, during the implementation, is can we help you with your 911 zone? Can we have that? And the portals you've seen are very easy to use. But if you need any hand holding, happy to do it. And so I think you're going to find a very friendly, dedicated experience as you onboard.
Yeah, not to mention that
Go
you
ahead,
do
Bob.
have an assigned project director and manager, to walk you through, the entire process. Second question we have is, can you integrate with Cisco Call Manager in such a way that a user can have a Cisco SIP phone and Teams phone with the same number?
Yeah, I'm going to flip back to a slide. Yes and no. I can tell you how it's done and what we can do and don't do. Right. So these are picture Cisco Call Manager, which this is. Let's picture some cubes set up there. The way this design works is you have two different phone systems, right? And what the question is not that. But in this design, you see Cisco cubes connected to Call Manager is the interface, and you have the Microsoft Teams phone system, and they have, let's picture 100 shared SIP trunks between them. What you want to do in this question is to integrate with Cisco Call Manager endpoints. And so what you have to do is you have to SIP fork over. And this is no secret. This is what we do on our Cisco BroadSoft platform when you want integration. So what we're doing is we're using our high availability SBCs to fork between the two of them. So for you to do this, you need to have the Microsoft Teams phone system license. That's what you have to have for those users that you want to be able to interact with teams that are making those calls. For the Cisco environment, you have to have an SBC that SIP forks into it. Now, BCM1 does not provide SIP forking services to third-party devices. Where we deploy it is internally with our Cisco BroadSoft system and Teams. So if you want to do this, what it would really look like is you would source your own either Azure-based ribbon system, TE system, or audio codes, and you would have to configure it to bond in and fork in with your call manager. What BCM would provide is the SIP trunks. So we would call that really just a SIP trunk solution, and you'd have to do the heavy lift to configure your own either virtual or on-premise audio codes or ribbon system.
Great. Can you also comment on Teams and international PSTN and SIP capability, Mike?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a key piece of the discussion. From our perspective, we have access to international phone numbers and be able to make calls anywhere you want in the world. When you make an outbound call, it depends on where you call is the rate, right? So a call to London, I think, is 1.9 cents. If you have a London-based operation and you call a Pizza Hut down the street, it's 1.9 cents. So you have to factor in the way we deploy. We have free calling in the contiguous US and Canada. A call from an international location, even with an international DID, will show an international rate from us. So your options there are A, you either understand and accept that your calls are going to be at an international rate, or B, you may, in some cases, it makes sense to use that division, have them on a Microsoft Teams calling plan. Microsoft has some international locations where they have a nice package for those locations where you can get some of those resources. And it makes sense. You may have a hybrid of some calling plans and some BCM plans. And we can port in a variety of more populated cities in the world. You just have to be aware emergency services and other things have to be discussed beforehand. There are some limits there. So we just need to have a chat on it, I would say.
More conversation. Hey, can you have conference room and guest phone solution with solution number one?
Solution number one is you could buy a seat for it. So solution one, I can skip to it, but you could add that seat plan to a common area phone if you like. You could do that.
Okay.
If you need advanced capabilities from us to provide the phones or so, you wouldn't on solution one, but you can use the seat plans for those indeed.
Okay. Can we get a copy of the slides from this presentation? I'm going to probably say yes, we can. We'll be glad to get
so.
that out.
I think it comes down to what's the right vehicle to get it, right? I think we're thrilled to have anyone take the slide deck. I think the question is how we can get it. So if you talk to your relationship at BCM1, I'm sure they can give it to you. Otherwise, there's a recording, right, Bob?
Right, the recording, we will send everybody who is on this call at the end of by the end of today, a link that will get you to this webinar that's been recorded. You need to give us a little bit of time to make it presentable, but it will be available today. Okay. Can you explain how you address faxing?
Faxing, yeah. Historically, faxing, folks will convert to electronic fax when they do one of our solutions. You don't have to, but that is a common play. And so we port the numbers in just like we port DIDs and toll-free numbers in. It's easy for you. Conversation needs to be had is, can you survive on a pure electronic delivery system? If you can't, we can provide an analog handoff. Those analog handoffs do not use what you'd find in a traditional way of using SIP trunking to power them. We actually use HTTPS and we buffer it to keep your page integrity. And it's also a HIPAA verified solution. So it's a really solid solution you could use if you want an analog handoff. If you're okay to live electronically, you can either use a portal to launch your faxes or email out your faxes. That would be a logical part of the solution set we would cover.
Thanks, Mike. I have one more question. How do you address receptionist phones with Teams?
Receptionist phones, and when I think of that, I typically think of advanced call handling, advanced visibility, so forth. Usually you're going to lean to option 2, solution set 2 from us. Solution set 2 is the BroadSoft platform that we use, and that's your underlying framework. And most likely when you're doing that, you're going to want one of our Yealing phones. That's what's a common pairing, I would say, Bob. So you're using a Yealing phone, you may want a sidecar with it, and that allows you to handle those advanced calls from that position. That would be probably a solid move, is to use our UCaaS One service with the one of our certified BroadSoft phones that we use. That would be most logical.
There's a second part to a previous question, and that is, do we have a model where we have a company do moves, adds, and changes where we can manage our own in-house?
Can you rephrase that one more time, Bob? I want to make sure I didn't miss it.
Do we have a model where we do not have a company do moves, adds, and changes, but we can manage that ourselves in-house?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So when you do the team, again, depends on the flavor, right? If you do the Teams phone system itself, you are the administrator by default. Adding a little more dialogue to that is, some folks are intimidated by running the Microsoft phone system, and they'll ask BCM1, can you train the trainer? And we usually will do professional services. Depending on how extensive your environment is, you may need 10 hours of train the trainer, so you manage yourself. But in these solution sets, the Teams phone system you're managing. Now, if you use the UCaaS One service set, by default, we're here to help you. So if you want to do moves and changes, we'll help you. But the administrator console will allow you to do your own moves and changes. So you have that. If you do the UCaaS One service, you can pick. Do you need help? It's included. If you want to do it yourself, use the admin console. So that's there. If you go the SIP trunking route, you have a command and control SIP trunking portal that gives you all the abilities that you need to manage disaster recovery, 911 management, international calling capabilities. Everything's in there. Call by call quality scoring, you name it. So we've positioned it as, if you need help, it's just there by default. If you want it, we give you the admin portal, it's included, and you can do your own changes. Some folks see these solutions and think we're going to manage your Microsoft Teams phone system. That's not the case in these solutions. If you invoke that, that's just like you bought a Cisco call manager, but you may need our help to navigate it and train the trainer, and that happens from time to time if needed.
Mike,
any other ones, Bob?
Yeah, no, those are all the questions that I've received. So if anybody has any additional questions they would like to ask, now is the time. Otherwise, we will close this up. Let me just re-mention that, or reiterate that you will all get a link to this recording, and you will have it sometime before the end of business today. So that being said, thank you for joining. We hope that this was of value to you and that there were a whole bunch of takeaways that you found useful. Again, thanks for joining, and we hope that you review the on-demand webinar.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mike.